everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this late night screening. We are so thrilled to have presented NANNY as part of the AFI Festival. And I am Angelique Jackson, Senior Entertainment Writer at Variety, and I am so thrilled to be leading this conversation this evening. And joining me are some of the cast and creatives behind this film. And first, I am going to introduce costume designer Charlese Antoinette Jones. Perfect. We also have producer Nikkia Moulterie. We have star Anna Diop. And writer and director Nikyatu Jusu. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being here this evening. I mean, also looking so fabulous. This was a premiere, darling. But truly, this is a film that really astounded people straight out of the gate at Sundance. Congratulations again. Y'all, in case y'all don't know, this film won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance in the Dramatic Films category. Honestly, Nikyatu, I'm gonna start with you because this film started with you. Where did this idea come from? And of course, the idea also to use this kind of horror genre as a way to translate it.
I am first generation American. My family is Sierra Leonean, and my mother came to America as a highly educated African woman, master's degree, aspirations of her own, and yet I watched her execute jobs that I felt like were beneath her as a child. She sacrificed a lot for us, and a lot of the work that was accessible to her was domestic work, which is some of the most accessible work for Black and brown women, immigrant women. And so that was the springboard. I got to NYU grad film straight from undergrad, and I literally saw the visual manifestation of what I had been thinking about. I don't know if anyone has been around Tisch, but you see this United Nations of nannies literally pushing mostly white children in strollers and caring for white children. And so I was like, this is like a sign from the universe to put pen to paper. And so on and off for 8-ish years, I navigated this story. But I knew I didn't want to tell a straightforward drama. I wanted to incorporate elements of genre because genre is a way into, and when we say genre in the industry, everything is a genre. Drama is a genre, but most people mean the darker genres. So the horror genre was a way into this narrative because the American dream is a horror story for so many people. And so I felt like it was an apt genre to navigate this story.
Nikkia, I'm gonna go to you next because y'all produced this together, you developed it together. What do you remember about those first conversations when you were hearing this story and then eventually seeing this script?
In the early days, all I can remember is this was a narrative that Nikyatu kept coming back to. And for some reason, we would step away. And I just remember thinking, eventually, just let's do it. Just let's commit to it. As a friend, I'm hearing you talk about this so much. Let's just do it.
And then when you read the script for the first time, what was your initial impression? How did you decide, okay, now we have to actually build this thing?
It was all really exciting. Nikyatu's writing, they're almost like novels, they're so beautiful. So I think as a producer, I was a fan. I was just like, I love everything on this page. Let's do it.
Because there are many layers to this page, and when you read the script for the first time, when you got it, because I understand, Nikyatu, there were some things about Anna's work that you were like, I like her poise. I like her authenticity, her gracefulness, her genuineness. Yeah. So obviously this came to you. what was it about it that stood out?
I mean, like Nikkia is saying, Nikyatu's writing, if you get the pleasure of reading her scripts. It is like a novel. You don't want to put it down. It's so engaging. It's so captivating. Her ability to storytell is just everything as an actor that I'm looking for. The character that she wrote on the page was nuanced and layered and complicated, and you really got to see her go through the gamut of human emotion, right? She falls in love, she experiences terror, she has longing, she experiences loneliness, depression, moments of joy. And so as an actor, it was just an exciting prospect to take on this role. And I already was a fan of her work too, because I was familiar with Suicide by Sunlight. Her short film, if you're not aware of it, go check it out. Yeah, so all of these elements were a no-brainer for me about this project.
Nikyatu, in this project, you really tie this story to, very cultural elements, very spiritual elements, particular very, West African mythologies. Tell me a little bit about how you wanted to weave that into the story and why that was so important.
One of my North Stars creatively is Guillermo del Toro. I love the way that he approaches creature creation with humanity. Like he treats his monsters as human beings with the full breadth and depth of what it means to be human. And culturally specific folklore is a very American folklore, because America is a nation of enslaved peoples, indigenous peoples. So all of this folklore is still very American. And I knew that as a first-gen American with African parents, the African diaspora shares these figures of a chaos agent. People call them different things in different cultures. Brer Rabbit, indigenous people call it something different, Anansi the Spider. But we share a lot of similarities in terms of the folklore that speaks to the ways that we've navigated survival. And so Mami Wata and Anansi the Spider were two figures that superficially as a filmmaker were like, okay, mermaid and a spider, we can do this with our little tiny baby budget. And then, they mean different things in different cultures, and they're two of the more visible figures of rebellion in various cultures. And so Anansi the Spider and Mami Wata made the most sense in terms of externalizing Aisha's interior journey. And I think that's the most important thing, is that these figures are an external navigation of her internal journey, which is tricky to execute as a filmmaker, because you have to make something that is really emotional and spiritual and cerebral tangible for the audience. So these were the things that I was thinking about.
Well, let's talk about Aisha for a second and the way that you brought her to the screen and developed this character. Obviously, this woman is Senegalese. Anna, what for you? What when you read the script, did you read and say, okay, there's some nuggets here that I'm picking up on, things that I'm seeing that ring to me as also very authentic?
Well, I mean, just the heart of who Aisha is a mother who is so determined and so focused on creating the best life for her child, and has the courage and intelligence to execute that. And so that was what rang most true to me. That was what was most stunning to me about her. I'd always wanted to play a role where I could honor my own mother, because she has so many parallels to Aisha's story. She left Senegal when I was 5 years old, and she did that in hopes of building a better life for me. And I'm very close to my mother. And so it just struck me, these parallels, and it just struck me, this woman's courage. And yeah, that was really what got me first about the story and was so stunning. was the heart and courage of Aisha.
And I understand you worked with a professor, was it, to kind of nail the accent? Why was it important to do that? But I also read that you didn't do as much research into the spirits, into the kind of haunting that we see with her.
Yes, not out of laziness, but
It was pointed, but it was for a reason. It was an
it
artistic
was intentional ignorance because Aisha herself isn't that well versed with these symbols, and so I allowed myself to remain a bit mysticized as well about them. But when it came to the accent, I mean, you know, when you watch something and the accent's off, it's really distracting. Plus, it's my culture, it's my people, so I really wanted to make sure it's right. Plus, Aisha is a woman who has a master's degree in English, and she's been in the States for a year, and so I needed to find the right balance. I needed to find what was true to her. And KT Sine he's a professor and a linguist in Senegal, and brilliant and very neurotic like me and very much a perfectionist like me. And so we worked together to get it right for a few hours each day for about 2 weeks. We just worked on the accent, yeah.
Charlese, I'm going to come to you with the visual language of who Aisha is. Tell me a little bit about working with Nikyatu, about what you wanted to show, when you wanted to show it, as you costumed this character, this woman, throughout the film.
Yeah, so I don't know where to start because I feel like we were just always so in sync. So, I had a lot of leeway to play because Nikyatu trusted me so much, and I'm really grateful for that because that's a dream as a costume designer, to have your director, writer, showrunner to trust you, because it really allows me to put what's in my brain out in the world. Like when I read the page, what I see, I get to create. And it was just really important that Aisha had 2 separate wardrobes. So she had her wardrobe that she wore to work, and it was a little more conservative because she's aware of her ability to be objectified potentially in the home by a man, a husband, a partner, a boyfriend. It's a very real thing. But then, you see her being deliberately objectified by Amy in that one scene, and we wanted it to be really bold. So the dress needed to be tight, it needed to be low cut, it needed to be like this vivid crimson red. And that was actually in the script, and I just loved it because we decided there wasn't going to be any red pretty much anywhere else, at least that shade of red, because it needed to make that point. So yeah, I think.
I love having Charlese with us because I usually don't get my department heads on our panels, and yeah.
No, because every element of the story is telling part of the story. So when you see that kind of full picture, I actually wanted to ask you, what was the first image that you saw as you were putting this down to paper? What was the image you couldn't get out of your mind?
It's never one for me. It's an amalgamation of images, and it's a series of signs from the universe. And it sounds super granola right now, but it's I tell people that if you have an idea that not only you can't shake, but also you pay attention to the ways that the universe reinforces the strength of the idea, whether it's through the news, an article that speaks to the theme of your idea, or a color that resonates with you that keeps popping up in your life that speaks to the aesthetic that you're executing. I think it's really important to be self-aware as a creative around the ideas that have legs. And I think that, the universe tells you when you have an idea that has legs, if you pay attention. And this was one of those.
I did want to ask you also about the concept of Aisha and Amy as these kind of parallel mothers, these 2 women who have these children that neither of them are really raising. What was it that made you interested in exploring their two narratives kind of simultaneously and, also obviously kind of avoiding that caricature that Amy could be?
There are a lot of themes in Nanny, as most audiences will observe. Capitalism enslaves us all, and part of what is enslaving us also is patriarchy. And, no matter where you are in the hierarchy of womanhood, you're still enslaved by this idea of what does it mean to do disproportionate domestic labor but still have to participate in capitalism as a working mother. Everyone had to outsource work, as you observed. Amy outsources work, Aisha outsources work, and there are pieces of me in all of these characters. What does it mean to have parents who are immigrants who sacrifice for you to elevate class-wise, elevate to a class that you're navigating, but you're hyper aware of where your origins are. Like, I'm navigating spaces where I'm the only Black woman, and I'm hyper aware of the domestic workers around me. I'm aware of the people cleaning my room in hotels. I'm traveling a lot. I tip generously. Like that, I have a lot of guilt.
She does. I can attest to that. $20 every time.
I'm like, everyone doesn't tip like this? What are y'all doing? But, it's like nobody wins in this system. Whether you think you're winning or not, we're all enslaved by it. And motherhood is something that we live in a society that proclaims to adore mothers and love mothers because they need us to pump out more children to create a slave class. We're pumping out children, but we don't have the tribe, we don't have the village, we don't have community. We're conditioned to believe that we're individuals. So nobody's winning in the system. And that's part of what I was navigating in this film.
Yes, we could get into a whole conversation on that, how we've all moved away from that, nuclear family. Anywho, but we, of course, have seen this movie here in a theater tonight, and it will be in select theaters beginning on November 23rd. But the movie, yes, please, clap for that, y'all. You want to see it on this screen, and tell everyone you know to do so. But for those who do not make it to see it there, it will also be on Amazon Prime Video beginning on December 16th. So I kind of wanted to hear from all of you all about what you hope that a global audience can get from this film, because it is so multi-layered, multicultural, and yeah, kind of those hopes of what folks take away when they see it. And Charlese, I'll start with you and work our way down.
I actually think my favorite part about this movie is the fact that Aisha's loved. Because a lot of times we don't get to see Black women who are going through something on screen being loved and supported properly. And that's just super powerful to me. Ditto. And just to build on that, I hope people can take a beat to self-reflect, because I think, to Nikyatu's earlier point, there's a little bit of everyone and everyone in this story. It's not black and white. So yeah, take a beat, look within yourself, and read between the lines. There's a lot there.
My hope when I do any project, but this project especially, is that people do feel seen. And when I say people, I mean those that are used to not being seen, those that look like me, those that are immigrants in Aisha's case, domestic workers in Aisha's case, mothers navigating treacherous environments in Aisha's case. So I do hope always, and again, particularly with Nanny, that those individuals feel seen.
Anna's heard me answer this question 100 million times, and I've heard
I
her.
never get sick of it.
And I always try to think of answers that don't make me sound like an asshole, but That's a challenge for me. But one of my favorite filmmakers, Safi Faye, a Senegalese filmmaker, says that once you make a film, it no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the audience. So no matter what my intention is, individuals will take away what they will. But one of the resonating phrases in the Sundance Labs, which Nikkia and I had the luxury of navigating with our project, was that motion picture has the potential to be an empathy machine. And so, you know, if people who previously hadn't seen themselves in the way that Anna alluded to see themselves very clearly, that's a check, you know, in terms of what I want to execute. And if people who previously have never seen a character like this centered and think about the world differently, even for 30 minutes after the film, thinking about the people they employ in their homes, thinking about the people who are cleaning their tables, you know, the people who have been made invisible, because they're not invisible, they've been made invisible by the mainstream. See them a little clearer, then I've done my job as a filmmaker.
If that doesn't say you have, I'm not quite sure what will. But thank you all. Thank you all so much for sitting for this conversation. Thank you all to the audience for coming to see this film.
Thank
It's
you
brilliant.
all. Thank you.